I'm Tiffany, and this is from Mamaw's Kitchen. This is where I get to share with you the old-fashioned recipes and skills that I learned from my Mamaw in her kitchen. Good morning, y'all. I am excited about the video that I have for you today. It was a lot of fun putting it together, and I hope you enjoy it. So come spend some time with me in the kitchen. I'm doing a little bit of a reset, a restock, and getting some things ready for the upcoming week. I'm starting out by fixing myself some goldenrod tea. This is some of the goldenrod that we harvested and dried back in the fall. And some of it I still have hanging, and some of it I have in jars. And I'm going to make me some goldenrod tea. I enjoy mixing it with apple cider, so that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to have that just as something warm to sip on this morning because it was a little bit of a cool morning. This goldenrod tea turns a beautiful greenish yellow color, and I don't know if it'll come across on camera quite as beautiful as it is, but it makes a very beautiful tea. I like to mix it with honey and then apple cider, like I said, and then I'll just sip on that as we work on some things in the kitchen. You'll also get to see me make, we did breakfast, everyone did breakfast, but I have a clip of me putting together my 2-year-old's plate. Some of the things that I have on the list for today, we are going to make some bread. I'm going to make a loaf of bread, and I'm going to make some bagels. My glasses fogged up there from the steam off of my tea. We're going to make a loaf of bread. We're going to make some bagels, and I'm trying out the honey loaf that Tamara at Southern Wife Everyday Life shares about often. And then I'm also going to try out my new vacuum sealer and share that with you. It's an Inkbird Plus vacuum sealer, and you can get it off of Amazon. I'll talk to you more about that in just a minute. But I have some ground beef that I bought in a 3-pound, do you call them chubs, tubes? And I'm going to section it off into 1-pound portions and vacuum seal it and put it in the freezer so that I can use it whenever I want to, and it will stay nice and fresh. And then we're also going to make some chocolate syrup to restock what is in the refrigerator. We were running low, so I'm going to make some more chocolate syrup. And if we have time, we'll make some cookies. So I was just writing down this recipe in my recipe notebook so I would have it handy to look at. And I'm going to get started on my bread loaf. Well, I say my bread loaf. Half of it's going to make a loaf of bread, and then I'm going to make 6 bagels with the other half of it. So you could make 12 bagels. You could make 2 small loaves. And this is a milk and honey recipe that Tamara at Southern Wife Everyday Life talks about often. And spoiler alert, it is delicious. The bagels are a little bit different of a texture than what I'm used to. The bagel recipe that I usually use makes a denser bagel. This was a little bit lighter. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I'll be making this often. Also, I usually make sourdough, and this was a yeast recipe, and it's nice to change it up sometimes. That reminds me, though, we're also going to feed my sourdough starter in this video. I'll link this recipe that I'm using for the bread down in the description box for you. It's a recipe for a bread machine. I don't have a bread machine. I'm just using my stand mixer. And what I usually do is put all of the ingredients and half of the flour in and use the whisk attachment. And then I change over to the dough hook and add the rest of the flour. And then I'll just let it rise. I'll cover it and let it rise till it doubles in size. I put mine in the oven with the light on, and it rose pretty quickly. And then my sourdough starter, I'm going ahead and feeding that. I'm not going to be baking with it today, but I want to make sure that it stays nice and healthy. I may go ahead and put it in the refrigerator because I don't know that I'm going to use it for the next few days. And if I do that, then I don't have to feed it. It slows it down, and it can store in the refrigerator. This is the Inkbird Plus vacuum sealer, and I am really loving it. It has powerful suction to be able to vacuum seal and have a good seal on it. It came with some of the bags that are pre-sized, so one end is already sealed off, but it also came with a roll that you could cut to size. This vacuum sealer is much smaller than the one that we've been using. The one we've been using, we've had for, goodness, I don't know, 15 years, maybe even 20 years. And it's much bulkier. This one I can put in my pantry on a shelf or put in my cabinet and it not take up as much space, and I can easily pull it out to use. Because it doesn't take up as much space, because I can store it a little bit easier, I think I will find myself pulling it out and using it more. It has these buttons on the side that opens it up, and then there's the roll. You can store the roll inside of the machine. I'm going to use one of the pre-cut bags to show that to you, and then I'm going to use the roll so that you can see that as well. I did go ahead and trim a little bit off of the top of that pre-cut bag because you want to make sure you leave enough that it can seal well, but you don't want to leave so much that it has trouble getting the air out. So I trimmed the top of the bag a little bit, put a pound of my ground beef in there, and then closed it back down until it snapped and pushed the button to vacuum and seal. There's one for moist contents, one for dry contents. There's also a button that just creates the seal, which we'll use here in just a minute when we cut the bag and need to seal one side of it to create our own bag. This machine made a beautiful seal line. I was really impressed. It took all of the air out. I'm confident that everything's going to stay nice and fresh in there, and then it had that beautiful seal, and I feel like it's really going to hold up well in the freezer. This is what I was talking about, where we're going to cut some off and we're going to create our own bag. So we need to go ahead and seal one side of it. So we're just going to push the seal button, and that will create a seal, make our own little bag that we can put well, today we're putting our ground beef in, and then we can vacuum and seal the other side. I like this because you can make the bag whatever size that you need. It is handy having those pre-sized or already like pre-sealed, pre-made bags, but then it's also nice that you can make the bag whatever size you want it to. Now I'm doing my ground beef today. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm doing ground beef today, but I have some big plans for this. I want to vacuum seal some dried goods like rice and beans for long time storage, for extended storage. Has a countdown on the top. I also wanted to show y'all that. So I have big plans for this vacuum sealer, and I'm really excited about using it. We can use this to package up our venison that we process ourselves. We can put chicken in it. We can do those dry goods. So many options. I'm really happy to have it. I'm writing on the packaging what it is, and I'm going to put it over in the freezer. I do have a discount code for this. I have a link that will be down in the description box, and a discount code. All that information will be down there for you to see, but you can get this at a really great price. You can get a very good discount by using some of the coupon codes that are available, but they're only available for a short time. So make sure to go ahead and go check that out if you think this is something that you could put to use. Back to our dough, it had risen so nicely. And y'all, talk about something that just smells delicious. This bread, the whole time I was making it, that it was rising and working with, it just smelled so good. I'm going to split this in half, and then half of it will go into my loaf pan that I have lined with some parchment paper, and I will make a sandwich loaf out of it, and then the other half will shape into bagels. I'm going to go ahead and let this loaf for sandwich bread rise while my bagels bake, just to give it a little extra time for a second rise. The bagels, I just went ahead and went straight to forming them, shaping them, putting them in my boiling water, and baking them. That's what Tamara does. I've watched her, and that's what she does. So I thought, well, I'll do what she does. It works for her. So I went straight into shaping out my bagels, and I have my water in my pot on the stove getting ready to boil so that we can put those in the boiling water before we bake them. I'm just rolling that on the counter that doesn't have any flour on it so it can create some tension and make a nice ball. And then I'm going to come back and create that classic bagel shape. Like I mentioned earlier, these definitely made a more, a little bit fluffier, lighter bagel, but they still had a nice crispy outside. They were really good. So in my pot there, I have water with a little bit of baking soda and brown sugar. Even when I'm doing savory bagels, I still put a little brown sugar in my water to boil them because I just think it helps make a nice crust on the outside of the bagel. Today I decided to do all of these savory. We're going to put that everything bagel seasoning on them and then some shredded cheddar cheese. And y'all, I love that combination. It is so good. Sometimes I'll also do cinnamon sugar on some of them. I have some family members who that's their favorite. But since I was just doing 6 today, I thought it would be easier just to go ahead and make them all the same way. I was just really in the mood for a nice savory bagel too. I think that's what it was. I was just really excited about the everything bagel seasoning and the shredded cheese. And let me just tell you, everyone enjoyed these. I tried one and I said, oh, these are good. And it was like everybody came running. They wanted one. I did brush the top of the loaf with a little bit of milk before baking it so that it would get golden brown on the top. I did also bake these a little bit longer than the recipe says. I think the bagels I ended up going, I don't know. I just kept a check on them with a thermometer until they got to like 190, 200 internally. And same for the bread. But I know I ended up going like maybe 10 minutes longer than what the recipe said. It'll be linked in the description box for you. All right, chocolate syrup. We were running low and I needed to make some more. I have a video on this. It's on my other channel, Our Small Town Life, where I was making this chocolate syrup. I'll link it down in the description box for you. But it's so simple. So very simple. It's just some water, some sugar, some cocoa powder, salt, and then you can put a little vanilla in it at the end if you want. I'm just going to combine all of that together, and then I will bring it up to a boil and let it boil for about 3 minutes or so, and then I'll pour it over into my jar. Don't go off and leave it. Because of the sugar in it, it can boil over, so don't go off. Don't go off too far from it. I've even just turned around to wash a couple dishes while I was waiting on it to heat up and boiled over and made a mess on my stove. That sugar was so hard to get off. So as simple as this is, as quick as it comes together, just stand there with it for a minute. I ran some hot water through my jar to heat it up a little bit so I didn't shock it pouring the hot liquid into it. And I could have put this in a pint jar. I forgot that I had cut the recipe down just a little bit based on how much cocoa powder I had. Normally, I put this in the quart jars because it makes a little bit more than what a pint would be. But today I had cut it down a little bit and it would have fit in a pint jar. I already had this one out though, so we just went with it. Spending these days in the kitchen, getting things ready for the upcoming week, does my heart so much good. Having those things prepared does my heart so much good. Thank you for being here and getting things done with me today. And don't forget, if this vacuum sealer is something that you would be interested in, I do recommend it, and it will be linked down in the description box, as well as some information about discount codes. Y'all get in the kitchen and make some memories with the people you love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.